Star Wars is a 1977 sci-fi fantasy adventure directed by George Lucas. Its impact on generations of filmgoers and on the medium of filmmaking cannot be overstated. It is a pivotal piece of late 20th century cinematic art that has been exhaustively analyzed and written about for decades. It would seem at first that choosing such a well-studied work for thematic analysis might be a pointless or impossible exercise, but that's precisely what the Divergent view is for, to re-examine and reassess what the message of film is. And in the case of Star Wars, it's a film that's meaning often gets lost in all the discussion surrounding its details, its canon, and endless sequels and spin-offs. So for the purposes of this video, we will only be talking about the first film as a single specific work of art. At its most basic, Star Wars is a fairy tale told against a science fiction backdrop. The kind of film that was an ultimate one-off, to recreate the B-movie adventure serials of the past with enough excellence of execution as to make it seem like something new. On its surface, Star Wars has a very broad revolutionary war feel to it. In casting choices that echo Kubrick's Spartacus, the good guys are generally played by Americans, the bad guys are generally played by British actors, or an American actor doing a continental accent. Carrie Fisher even forgets which side she's on in one scene and does an accent for about a minute.
The more you tighten your grip, Tug, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
The good guys are a ragtag bunch with improvised vehicles, the bad guys have distinctive uniforms, marching orders, and a big, powerful navy. There are World War II parallels as well. Scenes like this battle against TIE fighters visually echo the turret gunners of that war. There are even Cold War parallels. The Death Star is a symbol of the military-industrial complex taken to its most illogical extreme, a weapon that can destroy an entire planet. Arguably a more ridiculous waste of people and resources than a nuclear war. The Empire itself seems to represent a culmination of everything that is war and warlike, so in a certain sense, the conflict in the film is an insurgency against the machinery of war itself. But behind this very simple analysis, there's something deeper going on in Star Wars, not just in its narrative, but what it means as a work of art. Star Wars is a metafable about the power of creativity. The Force is the power of creativity, of imagination and inspiration. There's a common tendency to think of artists as being talented because creativity is something they possess. But any artist will tell you that creativity is something that comes from outside themselves, that they channel by trusting it.
You mean it controls your actions?
Partially, but it also obeys your commands.
The idea of the muse from ancient Greece is one of the earliest acknowledgments of this concept. The idea that creativity is a divine force that we let in to do the heavy lifting we don't even know we're capable of, and that we thank it for its presence. The Force is a metaphor for this idea. Creativity as an instrument of the divine. Not simply within the film narrative itself, but in the film's construction as a work of art. George Lucas didn't get Star Wars made all by himself because he had some singular vision. Rather, he inspired everyone working for him to bring all their creativity to their art, to be full participants in the process. He got people to believe in Star Wars when there was no Star Wars. That in itself constitutes a kind of miracle unprecedented in the industry, and it changed the film industry forever. It made careers, and it elevated special effects and sound effects design work as legitimate business, no longer just things to be done in-house as cheaply as possible. And Lucas thanked his muse by giving everyone involved in the film a share of it. So if the Force is creativity, imagination, and inspiration, what is its antithesis? What opposes it? While the sequels would dig into the dark side of the Force as a magical opposite, this idea has erased an important thematic understanding of the original work. And that is that the thematic opposite of the Force is the Empire itself and what it represents. Repression, authoritarianism, militarism, robotic conformity, corruption, and technology as an end in itself. The figure of Darth Vader epitomizes this. He's a literal visual representation of what happens to someone who has given themselves body and soul to what the Empire represents. Someone who has subordinated their own imagination and inspiration to the pursuit of power and the internalization of technology. Darth Vader is a vision not so much of evil, but of corruption. What little we see of the leadership of the Empire are generally old men. The obvious associations here are that there is a connection between physical frailty and the desire for power and technological mastery. Corruption, militarism, fear, and physical and moral decay are what the Empire produces, and what it is. The Death Star's cavernous interiors mirror the construction of medieval cathedrals, like a dark cathedral where technology is God, and the individual human being is an insignificant part, as evidenced by the lethality of its design. No handrails here to prevent someone from falling to their death. The Death Star is the ultimate symbol of war and oppression, and why its destruction is so important. It is the final instrument the unseen Emperor has brought forth to control the Empire, and despite all odds, it is destroyed by the inspiration and creativity of a handful of unlikely heroes, including a farm boy from Tatooine named Luke, who at the moment of truth does the impossible by believing in something bigger than himself. There's an important significance in him turning off the computer at the end. It's not just because he's using the Force. He's also rejecting the machine, the thing that does our thinking for us, that makes us weaker and more susceptible to oppression, and ultimately make war machines like the Death Star possible. No one watching this movie in 1977 had any doubt what the ending of the film meant. The Empire's hold on the galaxy had been broken, and now freedom was the order of the day, the ability to create a new, hopeful future, not with arms and technology and fear, but with new understanding and belief in the creative power within everyone. Ironically, the film would eventually be repackaged and retitled as A New Hope. But the truth is, what Star Wars was informing us about thematically was really just good old American idealism. The idea that you didn't need to be born special to be special, as long as you were willing to believe in the power of creativity, imagination, and inspiration. Perhaps it's that idea that kept people waiting in lines to see it, and why it was still playing in theaters a year after its initial release. There are, of course, a million ways to interpret Star Wars, and this is one of them. This is The Divergent View. I'm randomrob. Thanks for watching.